Hello, and thank you for tuning in to my review of The Phoenix Project by M.R. Pritchard. I have to admit, I was very surprised that I liked this book more than I thought I was going to. I have read quite a few books by independent authors, and I was let down by them. But I really enjoyed this book, and I have rated it 4 stars on Goodreads. First off, I want to say that I think this book, the best way to sum it up, would be a sophisticated read for YA readers. Yes, it is a YA dystopian set in a world where the recession is so bad, kind of like it is in today's present-day times. And the main character's name is Andromeda. She goes by the name Andy. And she was, at one time, she was a brilliant geneticist, and she felt that she just wasn't appreciated in her field, so she quits her job and becomes a nurse in a NICU. And a NICU is a newborn intensive care unit in a local hospital. Now, the book is set in my local area of central New York. And I thought that was a really cool thing to read about my local area. But she does it in such a way where she changes the town names, and it's kind of vague, so it could be anywhere in America. But it does say on the back the synopsis, which I don't think the synopsis did a very good job of telling you just what this book is about, but it tells you it's set in upstate New York. Now, we meet Andy in the beginning, and she's working in a hospital. We're introduced to her family, which is very important to her, and she has a strong family bond with her husband and her daughter. I'm kind of thinking that this, I don't know if it's classified correctly, that I don't know if it is considered YA, because it is, the main character is in her late 20s and not a teenager, where most YA books tend to be about teens in high school or in middle school or whatnot. But the writing style is of the YA style, though. I will throw that out, so don't want to get sidetracked here. Where she is working at the hospital, and an event happens where the power goes out, cell phones aren't working, and automobiles stop working. Of course, this are some of the symptoms that happen when there's a electromagnetic pulse that can be caused by a nuclear warhead or an EMP bomb. So they really kind of don't know what's going on at first, and then they start to hear rumors that there has been a bomb dropped in her home city where she lives. So she sticks around the hospital for a little while, and they're on lockdown because it's a state of emergency, and they don't want any of the nurses to leave. And she, like anybody else, you want to get back to your family, so she decides she's going to, gather enough supplies, and she's going to leave the hospital. So she decides to walk down the highway up north to where her home city is. She there meets a gentleman who is being attacked by a gang of thugs who are looking to riot and pillage the city. They come across this young man, and they're attacking him while she stumbles across them. She recognizes one of the attackers, and she talks them out of not hurting this guy. This guy then decides to follow her home, and they discover that they're going to the same place. I'm going to try to give you a little bit about this book without spoiling too much. I just want to make it a little bit interesting so you guys kind of have a feel for what exactly is going on and introduce you to the characters. I thought there was a very strong character development with all of these characters. I mean, you really felt that Andy was a real person because, you just felt how much she cared for her family, how much she loved her work, and how much she liked her job. The other character, Adam, I don't recall if they ever mentioned the last name. I don't think last names are a very strong point of the characters in this book, but it's not very important to know the last names because there are very few people to, confuse them with anyone else. But we meet Adam, and they get to know each other a little bit better as they're heading home. And there's romantic tension right away. I mean, you kind of get the feeling that, you know, something's going to happen with these two characters. One of the things I did not think was cool, I mean, in the book, it only took them like a matter of a few days to get from, you know, which I know is Syracuse, to get to what is Phoenix in the book, and not the real Phoenix, because she switches names of the city for another town name. It would not take you only a few days. I thought that was pretty unreal, because it would really take you probably a good amount of time to walk from point A to point B, and I thought it was kind of unreal. And I do get how the author doesn't want to waste too much time and doesn't want to lose the attention of the reader. So I understand why she probably rushed along through that regards. When she finally arrives back in her hometown, she sees that things are different. People don't act the way they should, and people are just kind of out of it, like zombie-like, and it's just a little bizarre, and she doesn't know what's going on. She doesn't know where her family is at first, because she goes to her house and finds it empty. Like, even the cupboards are empty. It's just kind of weird. There's no one to be seen, and the few people she does see, they're kind of like slaves, like automatons. Getting back to the synopsis of the book, one of the groups that's responsible for these changes to her hometown are called the Reformists. Now, there's very little mentioned about them in the very beginning of the book, but there's said to be like a key, like, new party or something like that. But like I said, there's not much mentioned about them in the very beginning of the book, and they're a little bit mentioned about them towards the end. I think it would have been great if you would have talked a little more about what the Reformists were and how they were trying to change, you know, the nation. I thought that would have been a very integral part of the story, but we know who they are because they've taken over her little city, and she comes to find out what happened to her husband. Her husband is like amnesiac. He doesn't remember who she is, and she doesn't know where her little girl is. Her little girl is not there in the house, so she's like trying to figure out where she is. She's eventually tracked down by the people that have taken over her city, and everything is being turned into their ideal utopia. Hence, it's a dystopian. Where she meets the villain, Dr. Crane, who is this weird guy, and he's just the mastermind behind the whole taking over this city. She then finds out that they've had a plan for her. They know who she is already. They want her knowledge. They know that she's a brilliant geneticist, and they want to use her to make the people more docile so that they... Because if I didn't mention this already, the people were in a zombie-like state because they're medicated and basically put to work like slaves or like ants, you know, they're just doing their jobs. And so this guy wants her to genetically breed the people, almost like, you know, World War II stuff where Hitler wanted to genetically engineer Superman. Well, this guy wants her to genetically engineer these people so that they're docile and that they'll be good citizens and not fight back or resist or do anything that goes against what they're doing. So, of course, like any story, you know, she's totally against this, and who wouldn't be? I mean, come on now. And she slowly, you know, her relationship with Adam starts to grow a little bit more. We find out that Adam used to be an ex-Marine, and he was like a specialist where he did missions and stuff for the government. We find out a little more about this whole like area that they've taken over, that they've done this in other parts of the world, and they've always used like a natural disaster or something to keep people away from the area. That was another thing that I just, like, when I got to the end of this book, I kept thinking, well, how would the United States not realize that a city got taken over, or that like a whole county had gotten taken over? I just didn't get that, like, that the U.S. would just, oh, okay, this disaster had happened, and we're just not going to do anything about it. We're just going to, get people to move away from the area so they're not exposed to radiation. I found that to be very unreal, and I don't know how that could have been better, like, put into a way so that it would have made more sense. But I mean, I got that it was an isolated community, and I thought that was pretty cool because they walled off everything, and people could not go in and they could not leave. It was a total isolation. So I mean, the whole thing with this little town I thought was pretty cool. It was very intelligently written. You could tell that the author kind of knows what she's talking about. She has experience with science fiction. And just like talking about different things, I thought it was very intelligently written. I mean, sometimes you'll read like a book, especially YA, and it'll be kind of like not much knowledge or research has been put into the book. Where I really appreciated that, the author, she knew what she was talking about, so it made sense to me, the reader, when I was reading it. I was, of course, not too surprised by the ending. I'm not going to spoil the ending because I really think you guys should read this. It was pretty exciting. I mean, it took place over a year's time, I think, all the events. The first quarter to half of the book is just her trying to get back home. But I cannot wait to read the next volume, which is The Reformation. I definitely think that The Reformation will answer a lot more questions than what I have from reading the first book, and I'm hoping that it will be a lot better than the first volume. So as I said before, I had rated this book on Goodreads 4 stars, and I think it's a worthy book of, YA dystopia, and I think you should go ahead and check it out. So that is my review of The Phoenix Project. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, later guys.